Greetings, everyone. I'm your host, Chris Garris, and welcome to this Wednesday night edition of the Transporter Room. Tonight, I'm thrilled to be joined by two very special guests, Seán Ferrick of Trek Culture and John Orquiola from Screen Rant. Together, we're diving into the newest additions to the Star Trek family, Starfleet Academy. So buckle up as we beam into this exciting new series and explore what it brings to the Trek universe. Hey, Seán, John, how y'all doing tonight?
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing good.
How are you getting on?
I'm doing great. I just want to thank y'all both for, coming on tonight and doing this with me. I'm going to finally get into the Starfleet Academy podcasting. I've been on some first reactions, but I haven't really done my own thing yet. And so I was like, it's time. And plus, as we both, all three of us know, there's been some, hubbub about Starfleet Academy. And so, we might have to talk about that eventually.
No, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I'm totally unaware of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea what I'm talking about either. I think maybe as in a multiverse, I saw something about that. I don't know.
That must be, yeah.
We got multiple Boimlers showing up. I mean, who knows what's going on?
I'm fine with
Yeah,
that.
me too. But yeah, so I mean, I just wanted to honestly, go around and get all of our, first impressions of the series. And Seán, I'll start with you.
First impressions.
Well, I mean, like,
Go ahead.
No, you go. No.
We have such similar names. I thought I heard mine.
I know. I heard as soon as I said that, I was like, oh, it sounded like I said John. So let's just go with John Orquiola.
Well, okay. All right. So first impressions of the show. The show, I think the show is terrific. I think it's very, very Star Trek, but it's also very new Star Trek. I think that a lot of lessons were learned from the prior Star Trek shows and integrated into this, which is why I think the product is a lot more polished and a lot smoother and a lot more pleasing in terms of how the characters interact and how the story moves along. There is a lot of action, especially in the first episode, but it's not completely reliant on it. There's a lot of really great character work, fantastic acting across the board, not just from the Academy Award caliber actors, Holly Hunter and Paul Giamatti leading the show, but also, I mean, from the Doctor who's back and Robert Picard is obviously having a ball, and I think the six kids, the six main kids on the show are terrific, all in different ways. So, and without spoiling anything, because I have seen a little bit further ahead than has been shown so far, the show gets better as it goes along. It finds itself very quickly.
Good to know. All right, Seán Ferrick.
I mean, a lot of it, I just going to repeat what John said as well, but I think the kind of the opening sequence seems to, I think, have a sort of a bit of a reaction, and I both understand that. I do, because it looks like, is this going to be a dark and gritty show? Is this going to be upsetting? You seeing like families being taken apart, and then it just completely flips that after it's about 20 minutes of a sequence, and from the arrival at the Athena, like, it's sort of almost like a checkbox of bright lights. You've got the technology of Star Trek or Starfleet is nice and pristine again. You've got people who are both relaxed in what they're doing because of their confidence, but also you have the excitement of the cadets. You do have that character in Caleb where, because he's kind of, even though if every man had the size of Caleb, listen, I'm not the everyman, if that's what the everyman is, but you kind of have this idea of he's the outsider. He's not brought up with the full knowledge of Starfleet Academy, where so many of the others are. But you need that a little bit. But I like as well, you can see that in episodes 1, 2, and 3. And actually, I think episode 3 particularly kind of caps off a tiny little arc for Caleb, where he kind of goes through struggling to being sort of the bold child. It doesn't go too far, but sort of the bold child in episode 2. And in episode 3, he sort of ends with accepting being part of team, accepting being part of the academy, which I really enjoy. I like those type of stories. And I like that, because this is largely something that we haven't really discussed much. This is largely episodic. Now, we've only had 3 release episodes so far, but they definitely seem to be following closer to the Strange New Worlds approach than even, say, Picard, Discovery, Prodigy, which I love with all of my heart, was definitely a serialized one as well.
Correct.
And that, I think, is good because you get to focus on different things. I think that's the struggle with serialization, is the story becomes you have to follow. So the overarching story, I should say, where you can lose character moments in that. Whereas here, you're getting your character moments and you're getting to know the different characters. Like you, I really like Genesis. Straight away, you can see that she seemingly is the most confident of the bunch.
Yeah.
From the jump. People in episode 1 and even episode 2 might struggle with Darum Raimi a little bit. You're kind of like, oh, is this the Jock? Is this the Slater to Caleb's Zach Morris? I'm a massive Saved by the Bell fan.
Right.
And again, like John was saying, give it a couple of episodes, allow it to breathe, allow it to settle. And yeah, I'm really digging it. I really am.
Well, and I am too now. I was definitely worried after that as that dark opening that we had. I was like, oh my God, what is this going to be like? I mean, the fact that we start with, we go from her, talking to Caleb, comforting, to standing in front of a, Captain Aki as, the presiding judge over this, issue. And oh my God, we're starting out this way. But quickly after we get to, like you have said, we quickly get into a much lighter story and not quite so dark anymore. And I really enjoyed her, rebuilding building her crew, I guess, basically the best way to say it. And then, I mean, the instant we go from that, that first scene, and then we go to Bajor, I was like, oh my God, seriously? I just was like, straight to my heart. Like, why are we like that? A planet that has struggled for all those years under the Cardassian oppression. And now it's got, it was just so lovely. And then I just love the interactions between her and Admiral Vance. She calls him Charlie, and just, it just, it went from that dark to where we're at in these first 3 episodes. It's been lighthearted and just fun. The cadets are having fun, which is what you would expect at an academy or at college. So I have not had an episode yet that I haven't liked so far. And, I haven't seen the future. So I'm looking forward to this week's and then episode 5. So, but yeah, that's my first impressions. It's just been a warm, they got past that. And now we've got just this great story that I'm really looking forward to seeing how they're going to continue.
Well, remember the flashback, the epilogue that starts off the series is set 15 years in the past, which is still the burn era of, Discovery hasn't arrived yet. They haven't solved the burn. They haven't restored warp travel yet. So that's, a little flashback into this really dark and turbulent time, which is a time when the Federation was violating its own ideals constantly out of a sense of survival and other issues, such as separating a child from his mother, which is why Captain Ake quit for 15 years. And then so the leap ahead to finding Ake on Bajor and then getting to the Athena, and you the lightness of it, because we've already crossed that threshold out of the burn era into this new kind of like rebuilding, brighter, more hopeful time, and the symbol of that is actually Admiral Vance. And I talked to Oded Fair last week a little bit about this, which is where, in Discovery, he was more, was grimmer. He was a product of the burn. And now, he is lighter. He's joking more. He's smiling more. And he handpicked the most unusual person he knows to be the chancellor, because he also knows she's the right person. She's a nurturer. She's good with kids. And she remembers the Federation way back when, before the burn happened. And she is the right person with the right vision for moving the Starfleet Academy forward into what's hopefully going to be a restoration of what the Federation was hundreds of years ago.
Yeah, agreed. And I mean, and I hadn't even thought about that until you just said that he was much more, you know, by the book in Discovery. And I hadn't even thought about it until just now, but you're right. He is definitely a much lighter character.
I think we have as well, like with the. So this is 3195. Discovery arrives in the future around 3189.
89, yeah.
So not only so like not only do you have the reopening of the academy, which is a positive event anyway, but you've got this man who's gone from effectively a wartime
Hmm.
CNC to a peacetime CNC. You know, because they were sort of at active war with the Emerald
Hmm.
Chain when Discovery arrives, and you know, Discovery, as good as Discovery turned out to be for Starfleet, you know, what he sees is another headache. So that's the first Vance we get introduced to. He's like, oh, for God's
Time
sake,
travelers.
temporal accords and all that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
The last
right.
thing
Like, you know, but
anybody
it's
needs
like,
is
no, but
time
what? No.
travelers.
really.
Yeah, like in most situations, we can enjoy it because we're going to watch the fun, like, you know, kind of. But yeah, I mean, from Bob's point of view, his whales went missing. Anyway, but yeah, I'm loving this version of Admiral Vance. Just and the Charlie thing, Charlie and Nala. It's a familiarity that Discovery. Well, there wasn't a character with whom he could have that
Mm-mm. No,
like
he didn't know any of them.
friendship with, because exactly like he didn't have as I think professionally close as he got with Michael Burnham, and even I think to a lesser extent, but still with Saru.
Mhm.
It's again, there wasn't the time. It was only a couple of years, and he was still very much their boss. You know, whereas he is Nala's boss. We were talking about this today, myself and Chris, where we were going. So she is in terms of rank, she is a captain, whereas he is the CNC of Starfleet. You know, but she's also got this sort of other unusual job, which is Chancellor of the Academy, which itself, although it's not a military
Yeah.
rank, you know, it's still like, it's a different relationship. And I love it. And I love how it's playing out. And I love that they seem to be able to talk and you can kind of strip away the rank a little bit. Not to say that if he gave an order, it wouldn't be followed,
Correct.
but you can just kind of enjoy that without getting the headache of, you know, kind of, basically, I'm loving seeing the difference. Vance and Nala versus anyone in Kelrec.
Oh gosh. Oh my
I
god.
like
Well,
Kelric. I like Kelric a lot.
I like him.
yeah, we'll get. And he's actually going to be. I was when I, you know, he was one of my cast members. I was like, am I going to talk about him today? And I think I will, just for a smidge because of the last episode. But something that the way you described Vance and Nala actually just made me think of. Actually, it's almost like the same relationship, and it's because, you know, you're right. He is her admiral. He's her boss, but she has 422 years of knowledge, which is very reminiscent of Jadzia and Cisco, where at least I mean, I'm just doing that comparison in my head.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
had 300 and something years of, you know, of symbionts in her. So she has, you know, yes, Cisco was her commanding officer, but she also had, you know, she would do it as she was ordered, but she did not have issues imparting some of her extra knowledge of, hey, you know, this is how it was, blah, 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 or something, you know. Again, so he respected that 300 something years, and Vance is respecting her 422 years of experience that she's lived through a lot. Both of them have lived through a lot. So, yeah, I had to actually, I just thought about that while we were talking. I can see that kind of similarities between the two characters in a way. All right.
And I like that she is kind herself and the Doctor are both pre-burn.
Mhm.
They know what Starfleet looked like then. The Doctor, and to think the Doctor's even older
Yeah.
again, but they have seen Starfleet in its heyday. So I think both as psychologically crippling as the burn must have been, you know, to witness it and to survive it and see everything kind of come crashing down, they also know what Starfleet can be. Because even the crew of the Discovery, they're from the earlier days of Starfleet. I mean, it's only 100 years after
Yeah.
Archer that they're from. So they're sort of going, hang on, we ended up doing what? Which is, kind of, I love, like, for example, Unification 3, and I'm paraphrasing slightly, but, like, sure, the last time I saw Spock, he was pushing a button on a ship. What do you mean he rejoined the Romulans and the Vulcan? He was always an overachiever, that little brother of mine. So it's different. I would say the Doctor has been continuously activated since the 2370s. Nala, I mean, if I'm doing my maths here, we're going back to about the 26th, 27th century.
28th century, yeah.
So, yeah, I'm trying to hang on to some 28th, yeah, so 31.
According to the prank,
29, 28.
According to the prank she did in episode 3, like that we talked about.
Yes.
28th century.
Yeah, okay.
28th century?
28th century. So around the time of the Temporal, I think the Temporal Wars are 20. Well, the Temporal Wars are both the 27th century and whenever the hell you want to have them, because
like 30th.
It's the great joke.
30th or so.
I thought Daniels was from the 30th or the 31st century.
He is, I think he said, because we're only, I think it's 29th and other, because he said, I served in the Enterprise and others.
Yeah.
But I think it's episode 3 where, because I think it's the prank war, where Caleb is stood next to a student who looks a lot like Kovich. So now we're thinking, I bet that is Kovich. And because he's a time traveler, he's just having fun.
Oh.
He's like, Joe, I got to do my schooling then, and that's fine.
I'm going to rewatch that now. Dang it.
Because only one character in Star Trek is allowed to wear glasses.
Oh, God. We'll get to that in a few minutes.
All right.
No, but, for me personally, I have enjoyed this cast as a whole. I feel like they I personally did a good job of casting them all. It's just the right age group. And, as some of the people that were watching this know, I have another host, Linda Paiges, who is in college right now. She is a physics major, and this series is targeting her demographic like on point. That's what it's about. I mean, that's why she's loving it. I mean, she loves every episode of it. And so I feel like, by having Holly Hunter as the chancellor and bringing in Vance as needed, has been just a great thing. I know people may not agree, but I feel like they got this right. And, and as some of my characters that I have grown to love so far, obviously I like Nala, because as a Lanthanite, she just doesn't care. I mean, she cares, but like wearing shoes is just whatever. I've been here for 400 years. And I will admit, the first episode, when she was, and I hate to admit it, I was like, oh, that's not how you sit in the captain's chair. That was my first reaction. But I quickly changed my mind, because I'm like, oh, wait a second. She's a Lanthanite. And with the way we've seen Pelia and with how kind of nonchalant they are, and for me personally, if we hadn't had her in Strange New to see how just, again, kind of nonchalant and just like, oh, well, it's fine. We'll do this. And all of the relics that she had and everything, I probably wouldn't have, it would have probably hit me a little bit harder. But once I realized, oh, she's fine. She doesn't, like, it's just the chair. And she's respecting the chair, but it's just, they're going to be flying for 15 hours. She's reading a book. So, yeah. So that part was, but I got past it. So I do love her. And then I'm sorry. They had to have been holding on to this line for Laura Thawk for who knows how long. I'm sorry. When they shenan once, they're going to shenan again.
It's great.
I just like, whoever that writer was that came up with that line, they should get a bonus, like a big bonus. Yeah. So I've loved those. Those been to my, of the command level, cast, they've been my best. And then, as we said earlier, Genesis, I want to know. I know she's an Admiral Starter, but I want to know. There's something we don't know yet, I feel. And I don't think it's going to be a bad thing whatsoever. I mean, and we got some of her backstory, obviously, in episode 3, but I still feel like there's more to it. Like, how does she know the stuff she does? She's been a born leader from what I can tell after the 3rd episode. So, those are that's my take on the casting and crew so far. What about your guy, John?
Well, okay. Genesis is awesome. I mean, she was a standout in terms of what you think a Starfleet cadet should be.
Mhm.
Because she's so put together. She's obviously so smart. The Admiral's daughter thing is a quick hand wave explanation for how she knows so much. If she was around it all her life, and you can consider her Starfleet royalty in that sense. But also, she just carries herself like a Starfleet officer, or at least a young Starfleet officer. But also with a little bit of arrogance, which is also kind of traditionally part of Starfleet when you're with the best of the best. Um, and then like Sam is amazing. Sam
Mhm.
is, I don't even have the words for how good she is and how like unusual and how like precious she is. Her reactions,
Yes.
and like her worship of the Doctor, and just like when Laura Thawk was injured, uh, and just everything about her kind of fl- flitting around flitting around her, and get the when Laura yelled at her and she's like, I hear you, and all that. But of all the kids, I I like all the kids a lot, but the one who kind of, and I talked about this the other day also, but the one who jumped out at me at the end of episode 2, and who is actually my personal favorite just because of how funny and unusual he is Occam.
Yeah.
Occam Sadal, Tarima's brother, who is like, when we first meet him, he says practically nothing for that entire episode, except for a couple of things he says to his sister. And then, when he becomes the third roommate of Caleb and Darren, we find out he's basically like a teen movie character. He's from She's All That or American Pie. Like he's just this giant goofball. And then he's even more of a goofball during the prank war when he's the mascot. Um, which is great because like it is still a college show. It is a Star Trek show, but it's also a college show. So they're kind of juggling both, and I think they're doing a pretty good job of showing that the youthful reverence of college, but also mixed in with the lessons being taught, and then the overarching Star Trek of it all. So of the kids, I think they're all great. My personal standouts for those reasons are Genesis and Occam. And then, of
Yeah.
course, I don't think we talk enough about how good Paul Giamatti is. Even just in that first
Yeah.
episode, just
Oh
how
yeah.
Yeah.
spectacular he is in terms of the scenery chewing he brings to New Spraka, but also like there's a lot of underlying stuff going on that obviously he's going to return later in the season and we'll learn even more about him. But just the way he interacted with Nala, for instance, because they have a history, and Paul Giamatti talked about how when he was creating the character, how his influences Gul Dukat and Brunt and Khan and Deep Space Nine characters, and how he decided that Nusbraka was a Klingon Tellarite who stands way too close to you, and he does not care about personal space, which I thought was really really great when those two shots with Nala and Nus, and when she's like leaning back on the chair and he's like leaning over her, and then she just blows
Yeah.
it. She blows the hologram away. Great stuff.
It's it's a show that I think with scenes like that, it's a show that has a confidence to do something that on the surface looks comedic, like blowing the hologram
Mhm.
away. Because in the context of the scene, it's really not funny, but it looks funny. And I like how they balance
Mhm.
that together.
Mhm.
Like Paul Giamatti is very funny when he's being bloody terrifying. The Venari Ral ship, which I'm like, why'd you have to blow it up? It was really nice. But anyway, the Venari Ral ship, it looks really cool. It kind of, it arrives with menace and everything. So they're kicking the crap out of the Athena. They are not there to make
No.
friends. This guy is,
No.
Paul has said in so many interviews, is like, he is psychotic. He might be charming, as many psychotic people are, but yeah, and he really plays that up. So there is that sort of, it's like, I'm actually thinking of like something like the Joker.
Mm.
Like the Joker is there cracking jokes and being funny, but you are not safe.
Mhm.
No.
And that's how I kind of feel when Nusbraka is on screen. You feel safer because someone like Nala is there and she has the experience, and the Athena is a state of the art ship and everything. Although maiden voyage, so you know something's going to go wrong. I mean, that's just part of literature. Never mind Star Trek. You know, I'm just thinking of it like, anything happen on the Enterprise B? No, nothing. Why'd you ask? So it is so much fun. I think when young casts are brought on, and I don't think this is fair, but I still think there's a slight holding of breath to be like, are they going to be not very good because they're new and because they're not as experienced, and they're going to be on screen with people who are very experienced, and that's in anything, right? And I genuinely believe, and I very much agree with you, Chris. The cast it's so good. This cast, like, they really, really, really are. They gel really well together. I think that like any show, of course, there's kind of they settle into the roles as the episodes go along. But that's part of the writing as well. Like, Darum is kind of written as a bit of a douche in episode 1, and then as it goes along, you see more of him. So that's as much the writing as it is anything else. Terima, I'm fascinated by. Like this. You would imagine everything is being set up for her to be like, she's obviously joining Starfleet Academy. Oh, she's not.
Yeah.
That's it. That was a bait. I did not, see that coming, because, and maybe this says a lot about me, but, you see this person who is quite, almost slight, and, the kind of, they dial up the glamour in episode 2, and she joins the War College. And I love that. Things like that.
Actually, I wanted to bring this up while we were still kind of talking about New Spraka. So, he gets in a fight with Caleb, and then he finds out that his whole plan is now AWOL. They blow up the Venari Rolf ship. So he pops into an escape pod, and he jettisons off. And then, thanks to Caleb, all the systems come back on the Athena. So they're able to activate warp and go back on to San Francisco. Is it a plot hole, like I think it is, that they could have at any time tractor beamed that escape pod and captured Noose right away, and they just let him go for really no reason?
I do think,
that
would be my take on that. As well.
Exactly. Because I'm not gonna lie, the instant I saw that, I was like, why didn't they tractor beam me? Show's over. But also, to me, I'm not gonna lie, it gave me a little Star Wars, reference in like the escape pod with R2 and 3P. I so thought that. I thought, and I'm like, but
the Empire thought there was nobody in the escape pod because they didn't register life signs because of the droids. They knew New Spraka was there. He just attacked the ship. They could have captured him.
Well, and you're right. We're go ahead and dive into this because it's part of this. It's part of episode 1 a discussion, and that was it was the plot hole because I'm like, where did he go? It's an escape pod. Normally, escape pods don't have warp, so either he somehow cloaked it. I mean, that is a big. I'd say that is a pretty big hole that they left there, and they haven't even touched it. Like, there's been no explanation on that. So,
no mention of him since.
Yeah, if I have a nit to pick, that's probably one of the few that I actually have right now, and it's not a showstopper at all, because we know he has to come back.
There's kind of like, kind of, you don't cast Paul Giamatti to be in one episode. Or maybe you do, and it's a complete bait and switch. We're like, oh, right, okay, well done, Star Trek. Didn't see that coming. But I think we're all on the same page there. If it had been something like a Venari Ral escape pod, you could hand wave it away. It has a cloaking device. It doesn't have a transponder. This literally came from the Athena.
Yeah.
It did. It came from the Athena, and no point in time. I mean, again, has he shown any way that he could have disabled? I mean, I don't know. Maybe he disabled transfer. Again, doesn't matter. It literally just took off, and there it is. Sensors. Anyway, we could beat that to death.
Yeah. But, like either Nala forgot, or she just didn't want to bring him to San Francisco. She didn't want to ruin this party by bringing this guy along.
Yeah. That could be part of it.
We want to have this lovely arrival scene. We don't want to spoil that with somebody in the brig.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with him.
Exactly. I wouldn't want to deal with him either. Well, and I was, again, the first episode, again, was a little bit dark, and it got much lighter as we progressed. And, she's building her cast, she's building her team to get this school, to get the academy back up and going again. Um, and you had your typical, I would say, teen angst, college angst, which is understandable. Caleb doesn't understand anything. He doesn't want to be there. He's actually, I'd say it's your typical, he's forced to be there, or he's going to be in jail, or actually handless and handless. So yeah, I understand why he would stay. Because I would too. Options of just staying safe or losing my, fingers and hands. Yeah, no, I'm good. But I had no problems with it. The doctor's interaction. Now that whole scene, I'm sorry, the club, when they were picking their clubs and organizations, I actually felt bad for the doctor. Nobody wanted to do opera club.
Oh,
Don't blame him.
almost everything the Doctor says is basically a Voyager throwback in some way or another. It's not a direct reference to something he said on the show. It's
Yeah.
and it just pulls you back to your fond memories of Voyager, which is perfectly fine and like exactly right, because that's what the character's there for, to kind of help push those nostalgia buttons.
Mhm.
But Picardo is fantastic in this show. He's so good. He's
Yes.
so into it.
Mhm.
And like the Doctor's being utilized really well. Like, he is, as an instructor, he's exactly the kind of like prickly, kind of jerk that
Yeah.
you think he's going to be, but he's, but like the device of Sam being also a photonic being, like hero worshiping him and like applauding everything he says and does and laughing at everything he says and does and making him even more irritated, is actually really, really funny. It's a really good runner.
Mhm.
But it's it's so funny to have somebody like that irritated by kids, but still like obviously he cares enough to be
Yeah.
their instructor, and it's a kind of a different thing from Laura, who is also like the intimidating drill sergeant, but also you can tell cares deeply about these kids, just
Oh, yeah.
even in these 3 episodes.
Oh, yeah.
I think as well, like with the Doctor, I think Picardo is doing this really, really well. That like I think it's in episode 1, he calls them all our little zygotes,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and he's doing this thing where we know that Robert Picardo is not hundreds of years old, but I think he is selling the idea that he has, like, this is another year of cadets. Like, all right, 120 years is a long time for anyone, but it's a fraction of his life.
Yeah.
And maybe Nala, I really want to see himself and Nala sit down and have a kind of a, how do you feel all your friends get old and die? And that sounds very, very dark, but I think that you can do a sort of a warm bonding thing there. Because I was really surprised for 2 reasons. But when Sam brings up the crew of the Protostar, so his reaction, I'm surprised by that. Like, okay, but I was double surprised. The first being that the new 60th anniversary ident, which starts every episode, and now we get that really cool, the ship's at warp. I really, really like it. But there's 2 obviously missing ships.
Yep.
And I was watching it and I had 2 different reactions. One is I was just like, now the Cerritos is missing. That's a missing ship, and I just hate. But the Protostar, in my head went, well, that's to do with, it's off now with there's rights issues, and so I went into the episode never expecting to hear any reference, even though I know we'd seen pictures of the wall that had Zero the Third on it. And then she turns around and says, like, what about Dal and did she say Dal,
Rock
Rocktalker,
and Captain Gwendala.
And Wendala.
Yes, that's what it was. Yeah. And there's also ones she specifically doesn't mention, which I want to pick up on that as well. But his reaction there was surprising because the Doctor, we have always been introduced to this mentor.
Yeah.
We saw it with 7 of 9. To a lesser extent, we saw it with Kes. I think that there was kind of a reciprocal thing with Kes. And to a large extent to the community, I will say, Kes is a character in Voyager. She's only in the very start of it. Go back and watch Voyager. This poor old Kes gets forgotten a lot. But I am really, really confused / interested to see how they can integrate Prodigy. I don't need them to do here's our episode where we go and watch it. Like, we don't need the menagerie,
Yeah.
if you like, where we go and watch an episode of Prodigy in it. I would like, I do think it is going to be explored because they've dropped that breadcrumb now.
And don't forget, there's a live action. There's a
also-
live action brick car cadet who's just
Yeah.
walking around.
I know.
So, like, you know, and you don't. Well, I mean, okay, if you can do that for the crack, cool. But I was thinking, you kind of don't do that for the crack. It's a bit like we were talking, John, the other day about why have they included a chair on. I think things are going to get like, they're dropping breadcrumbs for later episodes, which I'm fine with. Because I tell you what, actually, I'm sure the pair of you know this as well. When you're going through and you're doing your review and everything, sometimes you'll be like, oh, that stood out, so I'm not sure. And then I have to remind myself, as I'm watching a serialized piece of television here, I'm not going to get every answer in episode
Mhm.
1. And I shouldn't get every answer
Correct.
in episode 1. Stuff is included to pay off. And it's a fun line that we have to try and watch, like, you know, is this a plot hole or is it just not been explained yet?
Mhm.
Which I like that. And yeah, this point went very rambling. I do apologize. But I'm loving how Picardo is playing what I think is a man carrying the weight of the galaxy on his shoulders while still hosting opera club, you know, while still singing at an event. He's still himself.
Yeah.
Regarding also the Prodigy characters, I think, yeah, on his social media threads and Blue Sky, Aaron Walke confirmed that, you know, he and the Hagemans were consulted about the mentions of Prodigy characters on the show, and he said that, you know, and he said that they got to see the rough footage of the brick car in live action that was sent to them, and he also thinks that the Doctor's reaction to Captain Gwendolyn's name being mentioned was his memory of her funeral. That nothing terrible happened to them. She lived a long life,
I think
but
Yeah.
you know, he remembers
I like
having
that.
to bury her.
he was taken off guard. Like,
Yeah.
Okay. I like that explanation a lot better because on your first watching, you're thinking like the way you're like, oh, does something
Yeah,
bad
something
happen
terrible
to the
happened. I wrote a whole thing about it.
Yeah, exactly. Did something bad happen to the Prodigy kids? You know,
Did Netflix get him?
actually, yeah, we should ask the Doctor, did they ever get a season 3? Oh,
That'd be great to ask
A
him, but-
self-fulfilling prophecy.
Mhm. Yeah, and you know, I'm glad y'all brought up Occam earlier because you know, he was
I
so
love Occam.
quiet.
Mhm.
Yeah, and you know, and when we get into, you know, episode 3, I mean, we're gonna skip around. That's fine. We can do whatever we want. You know, but you know, when he's the mascot, oh my god, he plays that he plays that nerdy mascot, just the kid that would be in high school that would do that, you know, that is just he's got that down to a T that everybody likes him. He's gonna be funny, but he's also gonna just be quirky is the best way to put it.
He wants to be there. He wants to be a part
Yeah.
of the team. Like, I get, you know, like school spirit, which is funny because that's really not really a phrase we use in Ireland very often. That's something we kind of get from the movies. School. Not that we don't have it. We just usually say, you know, we don't use that phrase. So I have this image of what school spirit looks like, and generally it's from American movies. And I think if someone says, give me an image of school spirit, I'm like, hello, this is Occam Sedal. This is what school spirit is.
I did like the scene when he was, you know, half wearing the mascot costume, and they were all in Ake's quarters, and she was chewing them out. But he was just sitting there scratching himself the entire time.
I forgot about that. Yes.
And the Warp Core, pajamas, which you know,
Yes.
which I've seen so many requests online now that Star Trek should actually merchandise these things and sell them, which I agree with.
Like,
If they don't, they need to fire the whole marketing team or promotions team because that's stupid.
But how?
do you think they sometimes get taken by surprise of how things? Because I mean, okay, it's easy for you because of course I would of course get a pair of pajamas with little warp cores. I would love that, right? But I wonder if, because I presume the marketing team are not there on set walking around Nala's quarters going, right, we'll market that, although they should. But because that seems like And I have the benefit of hindsight.
Mhm.
So again, I'll give him a bit of a break for this one as well. Like, I have the benefit of watching it and knowing people will pick it up and buy it. But like, if I was in charge, have that available day the episode airs, launch that on your site,
Mhm.
because you will get sales. Now there you are. If you're looking to recoup how much it cost you to, join Skydance and Paramount together, start selling Warp Core pajamas. That's how you do it.
They could honestly learn
and
from like
it's awesome.
WWE and pro wrestling, because they're the best at that. Where like a wrestler comes out with like a new logo or something, and then immediately the T-shirt's on sale. In fact, they advertise it right on the screen. You can just dial this number. You can go to the shop and order it,
wow.
because it's available right now.
Yeah. Well, I was surprised. Honestly, I was surprised to see how much on social media. I mean, people were like, "Where can I get these?" Like, it was just like that. Like
Well,
so
Star
what you
Trek
just
fans
said.
are dying for merch. Star Trek fans just love merch, and
I know.
60 years later, fans still feel completely underserved in terms of merch. Like
Mhm.
like
If there's one thing Star Trek has been consistent with, it's been not doing amazing when it comes to merch. And I think, now correct me if I'm wrong, I think the 90s were the golden period for merch for Star Trek. Like the Next Generation bridge play set,
Mhm.
you had all sorts of models, all the action figures. That was sort of where they went, right, we figured this out. And so before that, you had Majel and Jean effectively selling tribbles with googly eyes out of the. I think that's apocryphal, but like out of the boot of their car. Lincoln Entertainment, isn't it? I think that's
yes.
or Lincoln Enterprises was the way they sort of merged. And yeah, in fairness, the industry was a bit smaller. And then you had, I think it was around the motion picture where they would slap Star Trek on anything. I want the Star Trek metal detector. I want
Yeah,
that
yeah.
one as well.
And the Spock helmet.
Like,
Yes.
I've got to have a
The
Spock
famous
helmet,
Spock
folks.
helmet.
Please, I've got to have a Spock
Well, then
helmet.
you need to talk to Handy Holt, and he'll print you one probably. I think that's where I think that's who Sirach got his from. Possibly, I've heard. I think that's what he said. But
How have I not seen a picture of Sirach in that
Yeah,
helmet?
never
I need to
worn
see that too.
Okay.
I've never seen him wear it, but it is on his like his lampstand. If you go watch any of our 7th row episodes, you'll see it says Cisco on there.
Okay,
It's
that is cool.
Cisco helmet.
That is cool.
Yeah, I think it's. We'll look at it later. But yeah, no, they need to do that. They need to get the merch going again, and but I was surprised on when we got to the beta test. About Beta Z, excuse me, how they had just walled themselves.
I do that all the
Yeah,
time.
how they walled themselves off
Mhm.
from basically everything. They were standing on their own, and so there was some backstory to what happened, but unfortunately, it kind of slipped my mind right this minute. But still,
Oh, when
I
the
enjoyed
burn
that part.
happened. When the burn
Yeah,
happened, Beta Z left the Federation. They separated. They built a psionic wall around their space,
yeah,
and they just isolated themselves, like plenty of planets did, including United Earth. The issue with what brought what brought Beta Z to the table, to the bargaining table, was because after all these years, their culture was stagnating technologically, culturally. They were stagnating, and so they had to rejoin the Federation, but they were holding off because of various political
mm,
issues. But they were being pressured by the youth movement of Beta Z, which was being led by Terima and her brother,
yep,
because the kids, the Betazoid kids, wanted reintegration with the Federation, and a lot of that was also because they wanted to get out of that stupid wall that was separating it from the rest of the galaxy, and they wanted to, now that
yeah,
warp travel was back and the burn was over, they wanted to reintegrate, and they wanted to see other planets, and it turns out they wanted to join the War College and Starfleet Academy and do all these things, but politically, because of trauma and because of various issues, and a mistrust over the Federation's intentions as they are expanding, there was all
mhm.
this hardliner negotiations about whether or not Beta Z should rejoin the Federation. But all that was resolved by the end of beta test.
Yeah, it was.
I think we actually, funny enough, I'm just popping into my head now. The psionic wall, when the burn happened, and obviously you have then, as Vance says, basically the Federation dropped the ball,
Hmm.
right? And they sort of left Beta Z stumbled. But also, you have this telepathic / empathic race, and there's a whole discussion to have in that as well. But follow my train of thought here, and I realize I'm going to talk about a Vulcan for a second, but follow my train of thought. When Spock felt the crew of that the all Vulcan ship in the Omega Glory felt them die across time and space because of this kind of telepathic. It's kind of like Vulcans feel Vulcans kind of a thing there. And that was because of telepathy. He felt that pain of that ship. Was it? No, I said the wrong way. It's the immunity syndrome. The Omega Glory. Yeah. The syndrome. And then in my head, if I can headcanon that, like, you have this entire telepathic race, suddenly the galaxy is on fire. Everyone is in pain. Everyone is in turmoil. So I can imagine this is where, rather than just say close their borders and say go away, they put this psionic wall to protect themselves as much as anyone else out, because like there's isolationism, which is what they're sort of portrayed as, and then it physically hurts us to engage. And I can understand then that staying up for 100 years, because then you don't know really what's going on the other side of that wall. Has the galaxy started to improve, or have they sent out an envoy every now and again and seen the Emerald Chain is out there?
The Venari Rawl,
the Venari Rawl at this point, like, so I thought, I really like the suggestion there. Like, a lot of that is me kind of doing headcanon here, but there's enough in it to be like, I can understand why they did what they did, but I love the fact that, as you were saying, John, you've got the younger crowd who never knew the before the burn times, never knew even, I mean, I'm inferring that these kids are kind of like early 20s. I just want to see a few comments going, stop calling them kids, they're in their early 20s. I'm 37, early 20s is kids. So yeah, sorry, like, I mean no disrespect by that, but so like, I really, really like that. Except I must disagree with one thing you said, John. I mean, politics in Star Trek? Never. Don't be silly. we don't do
we
that.
Don't have that in this series at all.
Charon.
Oh my god. Yeah, no.
It's brilliant. I really, Beta Test has been the quietest of the three we've seen so far, and I think it's of the three, I think it's the most Star Trek.
Yeah, by far. Of three so far, yes, absolutely.
Well, and I was not expecting them to, when they were talking earlier on, they're where we can put the Federation, presidency, the president's office at, and the headquarters again. And of course, they're throwing out all this, and of course, go back to France and everything. And I was not expecting at all that twist for them to put it on Beta Z.
Yeah,
I like.
I mean, I like it.
Yeah,
it was great. It just was, and that's when I failed to mention this earlier. One thing about Vance that again, we're seeing the softer side of him. He has been willing to say, I messed up, and own up to his screw ups.
Yes.
He has, like, again, he said, I messed up. We shouldn't have separated them, but it was what we did. I'm sorry. And then again, here in Beta Test, they were, really wouldn't probably keep it on Earth, but then he says, we'll do it. We'll move it over here. And so that has been another huge, I say huge change, but a pretty, significant change, that he's willing to understand that, they are out of the burn. They need to they need to change.
Right. Yeah, there was that line that President Sadal said, basically, when they said, we're going to rebuild the Capitol in Paris, where it was before. That line, and what was the line that followed it, which is like, you can't grow without change, or something of the sort. But the inference that, so we're just going to go right back to normal, to the way it was. Well, set up in Paris. Earth is the most important planet in the galaxy again. It was everything that the Beta Zeds were arguing against. So the compromise of putting the Capitol on Beta Z was actually really interesting. And I want to see it now. I want to see this Capitol on Beta Z. Actually, I want to see Beta Z. Have we seen Beta Z? Really? Like,
snippets.
I would say very small pieces.
Small pieces, little bits of it, right? In TNG here.
because I
what
think
is?
Menage a Trois
Yeah, I was gonna say
or
the
Menage a
one with
Troy, I think.
Troy and her mom are kidnapped by the Ferengi.
Yeah,
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 Also,
okay.
yeah, I think that's on Beta Z. But other than that, because I thought the wedding in Nemesis, but no, the wedding we see is on Earth.
Right.
That's in Alaska, and they're
They go to
going to
bed
yeah,
Beta Z.
for the naked wedding. Yeah.
yeah, for that one.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
Vitus Reflux. See, when I had the screeners, I watched the first three together in one chunk, and then I watched
mhm,
4 and 5, and then I saved six for a couple of days later. So when I
yeah,
watched the first three, Vitus Reflux was obviously the third one, and of that chunk, I felt like it was the weakest one.
yeah.
And then I did, and then a month. I let it sit for a month, and then I went back in early January. To start looking at it again for work. Just to kind of start really looking at the
Mhm,
episodes beyond the pleasure watch and just really like digging into the episodes. And
mhm,
to my surprise, episode 3 really stood out for me.
yeah.
Um, in terms of like the quality of it, and it was all about just the bonding between the kids and the rivalries between the kids, but it was all just deep character work between the 5 or 6 cadets. And I loved it because when I rewatched it, I was like, oh my, I started having flashbacks to my own college experience, and my own gang of friends and the pranks we did. To me, so it hit me very, very, in a very personal way, just because like it just brought back some really, really fond memories of, what it was like being that age and having a gang of friends and being in school and running around and messing around and fucking up and all these things. So Vitus Reflux stood out for me in that way, and in a way it's kind of like my favorite just because of the personal nostalgia it brought out for me.
No,
I think we
good.
talked
Yeah,
about it on Sci Fanatics the other day. So
Mathematics cool. Yeah, no, I've enjoyed it. Uh, yeah, it's been better than I thought it would be. I'm not gonna lie. I was a little apprehensive. I was gonna be, like I said at the beginning, a little apprehensive. But it's turned out better than I was, what I was, thinking it might turn out to be. So
mm,
I don't want to get into the next part. I'm gonna wait until then I'm not gonna start talking about
sure.
fan reception just yet until Sean gets back. But yeah, no, again, I guess the beta test was good. Just enjoyed them all. So I I think have they hit it out of the park? Not quite, but they've done a pretty damn good job
They're
of
pretty.
close.
These first three are pretty. If you look at them, take them both individually and as a whole. So far, the show is
Mhm.
pretty confident. You don't
Yeah,
feel the stumbling around trying to figure out what the show is, and characters who feel like they're only half formed, and and the best example is TNG season 1. Those first, let's say the first dozen episodes where you're just like you watch them now, and you're like, I know what these characters are supposed to be because
yeah.
we've seen 7 years of these characters plus the movies and then now Picard. But like when you watch them, they're like they're just not there, and it takes them so long to figure everybody out. But the show
Yeah.
has it right from the get go. Everybody is there, and we're just like finding out more about them. But you don't get the sense that, like, for instance, Jadzia Dax in season 1 of DS9, where like that character was a blank slate, and they
Yeah.
just did not know what it was, and Terry Farrell didn't know what she was
Mhm.
playing, and there was just not that confidence of knowing what Jadzia was. Oh gosh, I have the wisdom of 400 years of life experience, but I'm a beautiful woman. But what does that mean? I'm a lieutenant, and Benjamin's my
Mhm.
best friend. Like there were all these disparate ideas that didn't coalesce for like 2 years. It took them that long to actually like
Yeah.
figure this character out. But Starfleet Academy doesn't have this problem. Those characters are there from page 1.
Mhm. Yeah, we were just talking about that, and we were just talking about Vitus reflux and stuff, and just you know, I think for me it was I like at first I was a little the whole game, the war. Well, not really a war game, but still the challenge. Was it Kalika or
Calica, I love
Kalika?
Calica.
It was great. If I had the only problem I had with it, I mean, I enjoyed the whole process and the premise of it. It's just what I the one little another little small little nitpick would be unfortunately, when they cut to it and all you see is and the first reaction is Sam like screaming, "This isn't laser tag." And the reason why I like it is because it allowed the War College to use that against them. You know, that's where they're like, y'all aren't good cadets. You're not War College material. Blah blah blah. That's the one like little big because it allowed them to take a and I know they needed it, but I just in my head canon again, I'm thinking Starfleet cadets, they're the top of they're the top of the classes and they don't yell and scream like that, unfortunately. But then again, we've never seen that. So maybe that is the way it has happened before. But this is kind of like in my head canon. It's like, unfortunately, it gave the War College another just at them at the academy. And I was like, dude, they didn't, because they're struggling to unfortunately compete with the War College. And any little nugget that they gave them in that episode allowed them to, just attack them even more. And so that's like, you know,
They were also in the X-Men
Do you know what,
X-Men
actually?
Danger Room in X-Men: The Last
They
Stand.
definitely were. Yeah.
yeah,
Like, kind of the Sentinels were just off
Exactly,
screen, but
like
they
the
were there.
explosions going on.
yeah,
I just thinking like I'm probably getting this wrong, but I'm thinking the times we've been at Starfleet Academy before in Star Trek have usually been quite somber.
Mhm.
yeah,
Like the first duty, we're there for the trial. The home front, well, we're more at Starfleet headquarters,
Yeah.
really, but
Right.
sort of home front Paradise Lost, that's quite, obviously that's quite
Yeah.
serious. And like the cadets that we see in Valiant, it's wartime. So I'm trying to think, how many times have we seen cadets at this kind of, even though Sam is screaming, "This is not like laser tag," but they're still they're not actually being shot at.
True.
They are, but they
Mhm.
aren't. And because it makes me think then of going back to something like the original series, Shore Leave, and yes, I know he's a hologram, but Finnegan looks like he would absolutely fit in with these cadets.
Mhm.
Now, granted, the person playing Finnegan was about 37, but still, like it was a different time. But like he is closer almost to this kind of cadet,
Mhm.
but also these cadets are not reeling from a horrible accident, where I'm thinking, obviously there was like that scene in Lower Decks where Mariner meets Nova
Oh
Squad.
God.
Everyone's still friendly there because Joshua's still alive, and we're playing off the Nick Locarno, Nick Locarno of it all. This is definitely the longest bit of time, but possibly one of the first times we've been to the academy where kids can be kids.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Right.
that, I think, is a really important thing that this show is doing. I guess if we hop universes,
Uh-oh.
even in the Kelvin universe, 5 minutes after we arrive, Nero is attacking Vulcan.
Mhm.
True.
So, even then you do get the scene with the Kobayashi Maru, which leads directly into a hearing. So I'm enjoying seeing Academy cadets get to be cadets. That is an important part of this show. And one of the reasons why I was never not on board with an Academy show. I never wanted Kirk and Spock at the Academy
Mhm.
as a show. I know they'll be talking about. I know Harv Bennett, and I mean no disrespect to Harv Bennett's memory with this. I never wanted Kirk and Spock at the Academy. Move forward, tell us new stories, and that's what this is doing. I think they're working in cameos, i.e. Robert Picardo, really well. We're getting little dribs and drabs. Hoshi, Sato, Atrium. I love it, but you're moving the story forward, and I think they're doing it so well here.
Mhm. Oh, I agree. I agree. And and this may be a hot take here. I'm gonna say it. I don't I love Spock and Kirk, but we don't need any more series revolving around them.
Have we spoken about this, John? Because I'm not sure. I love all Star Trek. I can't wait if there's any new series. I would personally not go in a year one direction.
I
I
would
mean,
not.
It's nothing against Ethan Peck. It's nothing against
Correct.
Paul Wesley. I don't mean it in that way.
Agreed.
But Chris, I would be like yourself. Start telling us some new
Yeah.
stories now.
I mean, I would be
Yeah.
happy to watch it if it happens, you know. But
Same.
at the same time, like it wouldn't break my heart if it didn't. So it's like
Exactly.
it's just one of those things. Yeah, but yes, I'm also of the mindset that one of the things I do appreciate about Starfleet Academy is that these are new characters with a couple of familiar faces, but these are all new characters. It's an all new setting, and we're finally moving Star Trek forward without just kind of mining the same era and finding, like how many times can we go back to the 23rd century and be like, well, we haven't explored this particular month that happened in between all our yesterdays and and what have you. So what happened during those 3 weeks? Let's do a show. Like,
Yeah, agreed.
You know what I just checked there for safety? Just as we're on this recording, I just said, I'm just going to Google, because if they confirm year one as we're saying this,
I did say
can you imagine then this episode? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. As this is drops, oh my God.
Agreed.
It's happened.
Yes.
It's happened where we've been on recordings before and like and as we're recording, the news drops.
Oh my
Or
God.
the news drops a few hours later.
Oh, that's funny.
So as of recording, year one has not been greenlit. I know we're all checking Google.
Yeah, you just had me paranoid. I just checked Screen Rant's news email news feed where we get all the press releases.
Yeah,
it has not happened.
What I would watch it, no questions asked, 100% all day long. I will support it 100%. But I'm liking the fact that Academy is moving us forward into a new direction. And here's what I like about this. And this is now, well, okay, before I move into the next one, I just want to say, being the fact that, my channel is called Transport Room, I will say they have taken transporting. It's already a magical device as it is. They have really stepped it up a notch when we get into the 31st century. The fact that it is nearly almost now instantaneous. So,
right.
Yeah,
and personal transporters. Yeah, you don't need a room anymore.
Yeah, I'm just like, I mean, it's cool, but dang, it's almost like you just don't need, you just, boom, you're there. Like, and the fact that you can now, your laser tag is a transporter phaser. Okay, yeah, it's kind of cool, but also I was like, wow, they really took transporting up a notch.
Well, I mean, you kind of have to, right? Like 900 years passed. Like if anything, I don't think the technology's evolved enough. If you really think about it, I think it's all just variations of what we've seen before. Like everything still seems very, very familiar to 800 years prior. But what can you do? Ultimately, it's not a show about that. So it's like.
I love for obviously for Doctor Who fans out there, they come up against this all the time. Like when you're going 500,000 years into the future, why is he using a kettle? Things like that. So they joke, and it's an on-running joke. It's like, humans always just cycle back around. They just cycle back around. They kind of get back to this. And I remember we were talking, because I do think, as beautiful as the sets on the Athena are, and don't worry, I'm not about to shade them. I really, really like them. There is clearly a Strange New Worlds aesthetic going on. Now, we know there's a legitimate, you've got the sets, use them. I know they're not the same sets, but you've got the materials and everything there, use them. But also, my headcanon is, season 3 of Picard, Geordi restores the Enterprise D. And on the day the episode aired, well, why didn't he do it? But the bridge looked different in Star Trek Generations, and there was the 2 consoles at the sides. And I'm going to say, first of all, for continuity hounds, you're absolutely right, and fair play for catching that, all right? So I'm not here to, not here to slight anybody for continuity. But Geordi restored his favorite car.
Yes.
That's the way I look at it. It's like, I know what it wanted to look like, so that's where we got that. And my headcanon is they quite liked the Strange New Worlds era aesthetic. So that informed, because it's not exactly the same, but it is clearly informed by, because even Discovery looks different. And it's funny because Discovery obviously inspired the Enterprise, and the Enterprise has now inspired the Athena. So it's like Inspireception. But I do see what they're doing. I don't mind it, but when people spot it, I think you're right. I think there is definitely a Strange New Worlds aesthetic. But yeah, it's like, I'm a designer who likes this era, therefore. Now on the flip side, I'm living in Ireland and my apartment is not styled after the 10th century, but that could have just been the architect's decision.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and my last character discussion I wanted to have for myself personally was, okay, um, I've never seen somebody with a tea fetish like that before.
I loved it. Yeah.
I was
2 days ago, I wrote a thing about this. Like when I watched Kelrick with his tea, when I realized Picard has been an amateur all this time. Picard knows nothing about tea. He's the most famous tea drinker in Star Trek, but he drinks replicated slop happily, never questions it, never actually looks for the real thing, doesn't know anything about tea, never expresses any expertise about tea. He knows about as much about tea. I'm sorry, I'm not bashing Picard, but he knows about nothing about tea, and he knows about as much about tea as he does about red wine, because as we all know, Picard vintage under Jean-Luc is terrible. And everybody says so. I'm not just me saying it. Everyone says it.
All the characters have said it. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. I died laughing when he's like, put it in, start what noon to 12 to 6 or whatever.
Yeah, right.
Oh
Thank you much, sir.
I mean,
I thought it was great. Like, tea enthusiasts, get in touch. Because I'm Irish. I like a cup of tea.
Yeah.
But I tend to be like, just black tea with too much milk and too much sugar. That's me.
Yeah.
That's what I, yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah, and I know there's a whole thing. I did actually, sorry, such a sidebar. There was a place in Dublin before, the Japanese tea gardens. And it was funny because you go down, it's down a set of stairs, it's under one of the Georgian buildings. You're like, what the hell am I walking into here? There's alcoves everywhere. It is the nicest place. Oh my God. If it's still there, because it was before lockdown that I was there, and they have menus and menus of tea, and it's absolutely gorgeous. But I was sitting there going like, oh, can I have a cup of black tea, please? And they had the good grace not to say get out. But it was, yeah. So there's a whole culture of tea.
Sure.
So you're saying that would be Kelrick's heaven then, basically.
100%. I'm shocked I didn't see him there.
Well, yeah, no, I agree. But that was good. And so, unfortunately, as we all know, the fan reception, or I'm going to say reception, because I think the fans are actually enjoying it, but there are people that have been very vocal about this series. And to my surprise, it was pretty bad. I don't know if it's calming down yet or not, but at the beginning, I was just beside myself at the comments that you would see online about this series. I was like, wow. I mean, there was body shaming. There was this isn't canon, or this isn't that, and so on. Like, how can you have a female Jem'Hadar? Why are their eyes not black on the Betazoids? And just so on and on and on. I was like, oh my gosh. And a lot of my answers have been, it's 800 freaking years, people.
And there's been a lot of interspecies relationships. They talk about it because of the burn. There had to be, we've got, no spoilers. There's upcoming, things are addressed.
Okay, good.
But I think, because I think there's different categories, and I think we all know this. There's the ones who they had their review written last June. They just published it on the 15th of January.
Yes, there are people. There are people whose business literally is hating Star Trek, just as there are people whose business is hating Star Wars and hating Marvel, and that is their industry. So there's that category of fans.
Wow.
And it's it is obviously very frustrating, and you don't want to see any of this. It's one of those things, and I think we've spoken to this before. It's like, I understand what they're doing. Obviously, that is not condoning it. I understand what they're doing, because today someone handed me a piece of paper that says, right, I hate Academy. Tomorrow I hate Andor. Because it's their job. I don't condone it. Gotcha. But it's about making money. It's about drumming up anger, monetizing that, because anger sadly, anger tends to do more traffic on the internet than positivity does. So we joke about this, and John, you must get this as well, because you are quite positive in the things that you put out there. You're not afraid to criticize, but you generally come at it. I describe you as you go in with a green pen as opposed to going in with a red pen. And Chris, I know that yourself and Linda, you are very, very similar as well, which of course then leaves the door open for us all to be called paid Paramount shills. Did you get your Paramount checks, by the way? Did they clear?
Yes. And let me tell you, if it's even 1 hour late, I get furious.
Oh yeah. Like, they were once 10 minutes late with mine, and you should see the down counter on section 31. I can tell you that. But it's because I think it's so easy. And I mean, I try to, because I do not want to sound disrespectful to anyone here, but it's very easy to whip people up into a frenzy.
Yeah.
And it's very easy because if you take someone who is passionate about Star Trek, of which the three of us are, of which so many people that we know are, I think if you know the right triggers, if you know the right buzzwords, it's easy to get people worried, people upset. Just today, I got a text off a friend of mine who says, "Can you clear something up for me?" I said, "Yeah, of course." He says, "Listen, they've just said season 2's been cancelled. The sets have been struck." I said, I know the pipeline of how that rumor got as far as you.
Oh.
And I know at least one or two of the podcasts that are pushing that. And of course, their sources, trust me, bro. And because it drives traffic, So I did a thing a while ago, and I realize this is a bit of a sweeping statement, but I'm sticking to this, is the people posting those type of reviews, which they aren't, they don't care about this show. They have no interest in this show. They don't care about Star Trek. They don't care about fan reception. What they care about is traffic. Again, I don't condone it. I understand it. I wish they didn't do it. So this is my long-winded way of saying there then is, because a few people have reached out, understandably going, stop lumping us in with them. Here is my critiques of this show. Here's what I like. Here's what I don't like. And I'm like, that's absolutely fair. I don't put them in the same camp. Not everyone is going to like this show. That's absolutely fine. That is totally understandable, totally fair, because you will always have your own favorite Star Trek. You'll have the Star Trek that speaks to you more so than another. For me, it's Deep Space Nine is way, way, way up there. My friend Amanda, it's the original series is way, way up there. Everyone has their own, as they should.
Yeah. Mine's Enterprise.
With a franchise with this shows it. Yours is Enterprise. I love that as well. Like, so, because I love Enterprise is getting its flowers. That's the main thing. And so I totally understand if you hear me saying a thing like, "Oh, there's hate campaigns and everything," which I do believe, then thinking, well, I have a legitimate criticism about this show, but I don't hate it.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to push traffic, and that is absolutely fair. So, and then because the internet is the way that it is, things can get swept up into each other. Anybody saying anything positive is a paid shill. Anybody saying anything negative is doing a hate campaign. Things are not absolute. Things are not, concrete the whole time. Do I think this show is perfect? No, but no show is perfect. There are shows that are pretty damn close, but no show is perfect, but that's fine. I'm repeating myself, but John, the other day we were saying, so we have 3 episodes of this show have been released, right? If we look at the Next Generation, Encounter at Farpoint, The Naked Now, Code of Honor. Imagine just the Next Generation, those 3 episodes.
Gosh, that's a wow. I'm glad you said that. Those are 3 very rough episodes.
So yeah, the fan reaction has been, but I think the fan reaction is different from some of the other reactions. And because the communities we work in, we're quite niche.
Yeah, we are. I mean, we are.
So I do think that there is a lot of good faith engagement to be had. And I'm very happy to have good faith engagement. with people. Someone comes up and say, worst pilot ever. And I will go, why? Yeah. And if we can have a conversation about it, then we can have a conversation. If it's because there's a Jem'Hadar woman and, somebody's wearing glasses, I'll be like, I'm sorry, but you're an idiot. You're buzzwording.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're not reviewing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the difference where I go, like, I am so open to criticism. Yeah. So open. There is no issue with that. Otherwise it would just be called the ups and ups.
Well, and John, so you said it absolute. The best. When you had we did our interview, when you said the one thing Star Trek fans hate the most is new Star Trek.
Historically, it's been true. Going back to Next Generation, it's the reception for new Star Trek, because it isn't the Star Trek I know. It isn't what I think Star Trek should be, based off of whatever I watched and liked the most. That somehow invalidates a new version of it, wherein a new Star Trek show can't be a regurgitation of the last show. Otherwise, it would fail automatically, because then you're not doing something new. Then you're not moving Star Trek forward. Then you're not creating new things. And so, it's like the way pockets of the fandom react to every new show, DS9, Voyager, Enterprise, Discovery, my God, I think Strange New Worlds was the only one that kind of got a bit of a pass, just because there was so much goodwill towards Anson Mount's Captain Pike. There was so much goodwill towards Rebecca Romijn and Ethan Peck as those characters. And that was kind of everybody always says, we didn't ask for this. Who wanted this show? I didn't want this show. Nobody wanted this show. We never asked for it. But Strange New Worlds was actually a show that people did kind of ask for and got. So it kind of got. So it seems like they waited 3 seasons before Strange New Worlds started to get a little bit more of a negative reception. There was a bit warmer welcome. And then there are the animated shows. There's Prodigy and Lower Decks, which people either didn't watch but hated because they were animated, or if they did watch it, they began to realize, wow, this is amazing Star Trek. It's different. It's a completely different take on Star Trek, but it's very much Star Trek, especially Prodigy in the type of storytelling it does, and Lower Decks for the way it mines everything about the 24th century and nostalgia we have, but it's such a loving take that never punches down on Star Trek. But yeah, the fan reception for Starfleet Academy was predictable. Everybody saw. I think everybody saw it coming. Like the second the show was announced, and we found out it was going to be a show about 20-somethings in Starfleet. Everybody assumed it was going to be 90210 in space. Everybody assumed it was going to be the CW in space. And it's not that. It's not that. Yes, they are young. Of course, they have to be. But it's not Saved by the Bell in space. Although, would I complain about any of those things? Because I grew up loving those things. Not necessarily. So, but I think if you're not such a hardliner, if you can give the show a chance, there's actually quite a lot to like. Whether it's the really well written characters and very engaging characters, there's very good stories that we've seen so far, and even better ones to come. And there's a lot of love and respect for the Star Trek canon woven in there. Plus, familiar faces like the Doctor who are well executed. And I've said this on a few other podcasts too. But if you are an older fan and you do check out the show and you realize it's just not for you, get your son, your daughter, your grandchildren to watch it, because you know what? It's for them. And it doesn't really matter how you get into Star Trek. It doesn't matter what your gateway is. Come on in, because it's the greatest franchise in the world. And what's important is that you're watching Star Trek. And it really does not matter whether it's Starfleet Academy, the original series, Voyager, Prodigy, how you got in. The important thing is that you come in and you latch onto this franchise, and you find all the wonderful, positive, progressive and things about it that can enrich your life. Not just as a TV viewer or as a sci-fi fan, but just as a better person. I think we all in our lives, when we really dig into Star Trek and try to emulate the best things about it, we find our lives have actually improved in significant ways. I think we can all say that, for ourselves.
100%. And I'm going to lean into something like you said about that, like it's not your show, the animated series. Like, I'll admit, at first when I heard of Lower Decks, I was like, what? An animated series?
Comedy.
And I'm like, fine. I didn't, and I didn't watch. I don't know if I didn't watch it at first, but then I kept on hearing, positive stuff about it, and so I'm like, okay. I watched the first episode, and then I continued watching the rest of it, and was like, oh my god, when are we going to get the rest? Like, stop making me wait, and drop them all. I'm like, so I overcame my, it's animation thing, and it, and it was, oh God, I love Lower Decks. I mean, the humor and everything about it just was great. So yes, I was one of those kind of it's animation, but it was excellent. It was great. And so when Prodigy came out, I jumped right on and gave it, watched it day one, the instant it dropped. Now Prodigy it was a little slow at first, but it grew and grew and grew, and they got the short end of the stick. I'm sorry,
It's the most unfairly mistreated Star Trek show like there's ever been in history.
it really is. And so, but yeah, no, I mean, and that's why and you're right. And this is where I'm gonna wrap it up here for myself, is like, you're right about Star Trek. And this series has, it's letting us see where they're gonna go. It's a rebirth of the Federation and Starfleet is, what this is. And it's showing us how you're taking in, Caleb, who has had this just absolutely horrible life. And you're the jock per se, and you're going to just meld all of them together. And, yes, they're going to have their differences no matter what. But as we've seen, they're learning to work together already. I mean, when, in the last episode, when Darum had to suck it up and let Genesis take over, and he finally realized, okay, she's actually better at this than I am, and so that was a learning process for him. Took several transports and getting beat up to figure it out, but he finally realized it. So, they're becoming a team. They are actually starting to, mesh a little bit more as a team. And you're right, John, about the whole franchise as a whole, outside of what we're talking about today, is as all of you'll know, I mean, I started this a year ago and 12 months and 27 days ago. My first episode came out January 1st on this channel. And ever since becoming more involved in the community, the Trek community, it has changed me in general. I mean, I'm like, things that I like question, I'm like, oh no, that's fine. It's just it's a complete mindset change of everything. Like, this happens or this happens. Yeah, it's crazy how much the community truly is like a family. I mean, and I don't even know if I've repeated it, and Sean may or may not have heard it, but I remember, and I may have said on my STLV recap, I still get a kick out of when we were walking down that long freaking hallway, and I saw you. I was like, Sean, you're like Chris, and we just gave each other. It's like, it is like, it's a family. The whole Trek community, good or bad, and I have seen this with the groups that I'm parts of now. If someone's having a bad day, or just having just a really crap time in their life, I've been in conversations with people like, hey, what can we do? How can we help? But and yeah, it truly is trying to become what Gene envisioned. Now, I think we're a long ways from getting there, but again, as for my take, this show is doing what it needs to do. This is going to sound, I don't know how to make this say. We're all aging out of the other series right now, so we've got to bring in the younger generation. If we want Trek to continue past the original series, TNG, DS9, all that. We've got to bring in our younger viewers, like Linda, for example. I mean, she loves it, and that's what we need. We need more for the franchise. And this is my opinion, and I may make some people mad, but for the franchise to continue, we've got to bring in a younger audience.
Yeah, it's, to quote Chancellor Gorkon for a certain segment of fans, it's like, if there is to be a brave new world, your generation is going to be to have the hardest time living in it. But that is life. That's not just Star Trek. That's just the march of time. And so, yes, younger viewers have to come to Star Trek. The fandom has to be refreshed with youth and new ideas and new philosophies and new energy and a new way to look at this 60-year-old franchise that we love so much, because it didn't spawn out of Gene Roddenberry's head perfectly, every generation of Star Trek has added to it, has improved it in some ways. In some ways there have been steps back, but also course corrections. And you don't survive 60 years without doing something right. And in Star Trek's case, it's changing with the times and growing and reflecting our changing society, our changing cultures, and still finding the best in ourselves as we go through all these changes and are facing new problems and new crises and new threats to our way of life, in not just in the Federation, but in our real world. But Star Trek is there to kind of always show us a better way if we let it.
Yeah.
100%. Like in our own lives, we've seen it change time and time again. Even when it was similar, it was different. We saw, DS9 take that next generation mold and spin off into something completely else. We saw the Kelvin universe go, hey, look, Star Trek can be, trying to sound like the kids, cool. Which, whether you're, I was at Star Trek Las Vegas Gone. They did a screening of that first Kelvin film, and when I say people were just having a good time, Star Trek can be whatever in any genre. It's one of those wonderful things. It's 60 years of history. You have as much canon and as much lore as you want to play with. You can create your own, which is what Starfleet Academy is doing. I know obviously we're just starting, so it's only just really gotten off the ground with creating its own lore. But I think, Chris, you said the Star Trek community is a family. Does everyone in that family get along? Does any family where everyone gets along? And challenging each other I don't think that's a negative thing either, because I think it kind of goes back to if everyone thought the same thing, let's say they kept making the original series. Well, it wouldn't have lasted that long, not because it's bad, but because it would stagnate. The world around it would change. And as new ideas come in, fresh minds, new ideas, be tolerant. People who were there watching the original series will see something like Discovery and go, oh my God. And some people will be like, wow, look at what, when given room to breathe, this franchise can do. It can take, it's still telling morality tales today. I know there's so much discussion about how it tells those tales. Sure, I think there is absolutely a fairness to that, but it's still doing them. So that core thing that was there in 1964, because the Cage, but like 1966 onwards, is still there today. And that's what we often get asked the question, what makes real Star Trek? We were talking about this as well the other day. For me, on the one hand, it's simple. What makes it Star Trek? It's got Star Trek in the title. So on the one hand, I know that sounds like a cop-out, don't get me wrong. But what makes Star Trek to you is a very different question from what makes Star Trek. And I think even in the darkest of Star Treks, better tomorrow. There can be a better tomorrow. We can figure this out. We can move forward. And I think that's there in the height of the Dominion War, in the Xindi conflict, even, yes, in Section 31. because as dark as some of that was, they were trying to save the galaxy at the end of the day. They were trying to make sure the godsend didn't do its thing. So it still got that core message of people doing the right thing, not always the right way, but people doing the right thing. And that, I think, is particularly today more relevant than ever.
Yeah.
That we can do the right thing, we can work together. We might not always be friends, but we have a common goal. And I think that, Starfleet Academy showing the younger generation with that ideal is one of the most necessary things that we could have on television at the moment.
Agreed.
Here.
I agree. Yep. All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you for coming on today and giving me your time to just talk about Star Trek Academy and just Trek in general. It's always fun. This is always fun to just, go over it and see how it's grown, how it has affected our lives and the community's lives. So again, thank y'all. And I will see you again soon. Have a good evening. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for watching The Transporter Room. For just $5 per month, enjoy ad-free access to this episode and all previous ones, plus exclusive bonus content. Sign up now on Patreon.